welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the movie adaptation of I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Iain Reid. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. I just want to preface this by saying I do like Charlie Kaufman. I think that he is generally a very good director. But before I even start talking, I will say that I don't think he did this project the way I would have expected or the way I would have liked. I took some notes while I was watching this actually, just to kind of get my thoughts down and make sure that I remember them really clearly later. And some of the first notes that I took were that Jake's character does not really fit the description of the character from the book super well. And I think part of this is because the description of the character from the book in a lot of ways is Jake's idealized version of himself. Perhaps for this movie they were going for a more accurate description as opposed to Jake's kind of more idealized version. Not that the actor is necessarily a bad fit. I actually think that he was a good fit for the role. I think that he captured really well what the character was about, but he was physically a little bit different than I remember the character being described. So that's not a huge thing, but it is something to keep in mind just for casting. For another comment on casting, I will say that I think Toni Collette was a really good choice for the role of his mother, and I think that she captured that energy that I felt in the book when they were at his farmhouse. However, I do think that when they adapted the dialogue and the way that they did the farmhouse scenes, and once again this is a little bit more of a directing issue I would say, but the way that the farmhouse scenes unfolded were a little bit more over the top than in the book. And perhaps that's just the nature of adapting for film, and I think that's just going to be my general complaint about this whole adaptation, is that it lost some of the subtlety that made the book so good. So the thing that I liked about the suspense in the book was how slowly it unfolded, how slowly that end twist unfolded, and how the suspense really built gradually, but it was not actually over the top. The issue with the movie is that I think there just wasn't a way to really do that on camera without it being just incredibly boring. So it wasn't something that I think makes the adaptation horrible, but it does make it less true to the book. And I am coming at this film from the perspective of somebody who read the book and who enjoyed the book. So for me, a lot of what I'm going to look for in this adaptation is how true it was to the tonality of the book and to the suspense of the book, which was really the hallmark of that reading experience. So I do just want to say that I think no matter who directed it, no matter who was in it, no matter how it was written, it probably just wasn't gonna be very good, because I just don't think it is something that's meant to translate well to the screen. I don't think so. I know a lot of people disagree, and a lot of people actually liked it, and that's good. But for me, it just did not have the same feeling and the same tonality that I had when I read the book. Adapting that dialogue to film, it felt forced, and it didn't really come out in the same manner that it did in the book. And I'm not sure if that was an intentional decision to kind of highlight how the character of Jake has been influenced by like fake dialogue with all of his movies and books, or if that was just poor dialogue adaptation. I'm really unsure of whether or not that was intentional. Regardless, I was not a big fan of it. I think that it just made things feel squished together, and it didn't really do the dialogue justice, and it actually took away from some of the suspense that it could have been building because it was so like crammed together and rushed, if that makes sense. One of the biggest changes in this film from the book is that they intercut scenes with the janitor with scenes in the car ride and scenes at Jake's family's house. By including the janitor, Jake's true self, from the beginning, it sort of takes away from that twist at the end and how things come together at the end. I understand that this was probably done to make the movie more cohesive and to not have viewers be really confused when the janitor shows up later, but I do think it was unnecessary. It didn't really add a lot to those parts, and it did kind of take away from that ending. And I actually know that Charlie Kaufman said something about not wanting to spell out what's happening so plainly to his viewers, so it seems a little odd to me that he would make the comment of not wanting to spell something out plainly, but then he would include the janitor intercuts, which are essentially spelling out really plainly what's going to happen, kind of. So there's a little bit of a disconnect or a mismatch there. I just would not have included those scenes with the janitor in the beginning. That's a personal thing. Thinking again of the scenes in the car and at the farm, but I really liked some of those opening scenes in the car. I actually think that the cinematography and the way that it was shot was spot on. It absolutely captured the visualization that I had, at least. I think that the cinematography really plays a big part in establishing the tone of the story, and in this case it was absolutely spot on. It was so accurate. It was a little bit unsettling, melancholy, and just those beautiful scenes with the snow and the driving and the farm. The whole thing, I think, was actually shot really, really well, and in a way that very much evoked the tonality of the book. The main issues for me were definitely not in that. I actually loved the cinematography. The dialogue, however, for me, was not adapted well and was very, very rushed. It took away from the gradual suspense that the book crafted so artfully. I also felt that the ending was... Let's talk about the ending. The book ending, while it was definitely a twist and there was that psychological component, it was a little bit more straightforward, and I actually really liked that. For the film ending, there were some interesting artistic directions in which they went, and I didn't really like them. So the part with the pig, I understand the connection to the story there, but for me the part with the pig almost just read as like a satire. It didn't come across as like a really artful way to like go back to this traumatic part of Jake's youth. To me, it just felt weird. It just felt like it was almost making fun of that, and I don't think that was the intention, so obviously it didn't come across well to me. I think I understand what Charlie Kaufman was going for with that ending. I just didn't like it. I think that it was way too over the top for what the story really, how it ended in the book and what it warranted. And that's okay. A lot of people are going to disagree on that, and that's fine. I did not like it. I thought that in the book, the ending almost had this stark, like, bringing Jake back into reality in a way, and it was very heartbreaking. Because the adaptation went so over the top with the ending, it really just ended up being a little bit cartoonish. The book left me with a really eerie feeling. The movie just left me kind of feeling weird. It almost felt like satire of some sort. I don't know. Of all the parts of the movie, I think that the ending was the part where he got it the most wrong. I just didn't like the way it translated to the screen, and I think I knew that going in, that this was just not a good book to be made into a movie. There were some really, really nice details though. In addition to the cinematography, I really liked that there were these hidden little details throughout the movie. I did notice that one of these details, one of the more prominent ones, was that the woman, they call her Lucy in the movie. I don't think she has a name in the book, but Anyway, they call her Lucy in the movie. Lucy's coat and hat and gloves actually, and sweater, like change color throughout the movie. And I don't know, I'm guessing this was intentional because they get darker and darker as the film goes on. So when the film starts, her coat is brightly colored, her hat and gloves are bright yellow. And as the movie goes on, they become like darker pink, and then eventually she has no gloves whatsoever and her coat is black. It's really interesting. It seems way too intentional to be like just an oversight or a continuity error. I think that it was going with the tone of the film. I noticed a lot of those little details that brought in these kind of subtle hints and subtle clues that there were inconsistencies. Whether or not you knew it was happening in Jake's head doesn't matter. You could just pick up that there were inconsistencies with what this woman does, what she studies, what she's wearing, and ultimately, of course, that points to that she is an amalgam of a bunch of different women, real and fake, that Jake has created in this fantasy in his mind. But I think my overall thoughts are honestly generally pretty negative. I hate to say it because, as I said, I like Charlie Kaufman, but this just missed the mark for me. This was just not true to the tone of the book in the way that I would have liked. But let me know what you thought. I know a lot of people actually really liked this movie, and I would definitely be interested to know why you liked it, and if you did like it, whether or not you also read or enjoyed the book. I was not a fan, but that's okay. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.